Wonderful. So, with that, a very warm welcome to our May 2024 session of the Spencer webinar series. If you're not familiar with Spencer, we are a nonprofit organization that supports future leaders of this industry, which are college students pursuing careers in risk management, insurance, and actuarial science. We support students and universities through various programs such as scholarships, grants that support experiential learning opportunities, and our annual International Risk Management Challenge. Some participants are actually here on this call with us today, which is pretty cool. So, with that, we do have an amazing guest speaker with us here today, DeMarcus Strange, Loss Control at INSURICA. So, thank you for being here today, DeMarcus. And with that, I will hand it over to you to share your screen and jump into it.
Thank you, Spencer, for having me. Thank you, Tandeka, for helping put all this together. I know there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes, and so I really appreciate the opportunity and appreciate everything that Spencer is doing. Um, so I'm gonna give a little bit of information about myself. I've been at Insurica for about 3 years now. I'm in the Risk Services and Loss Control Department. Um, on a personal note about me, and then I'll get into the professional stuff. Huge lover of music. Do a little bit of cycling. Spend some time in Oklahoma, so that's how I knew that the young lady was a part of Sooner Nation. And one of my friends from Oklahoma is on the call too. So shout out to Tiara Wallace. It's always good to see friendly faces. Um, Originally from Texas, so I am really enjoying being back in the DFW area, being embedded with all the wonderful risk professionals who are in this area and just loving it. So that's a little bit about me. Like I said, not a whole lot, but in my spare time, I am really into music. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about the Drake and Kendrick battle, even though Kendrick won. But from a professional side of things, my background to loss control and risk started with safety. Interesting enough, I'd spent some time in the oil and gas industry, and that's where I came to the realization of how important safety was. There's a story I often tell. I told it at Risk World. We being in that industry, it's very dangerous. There's a lot of risks you face. So you quickly learn to, hey, take ownership of your safety and take ownership of the safety that the people that you work with. So I started there, did that for about 8 to 10 years. Became the U.S. Land Safety Manager for Schlumberger's completion segment. When the downturn in oil and gas happened, I went into consulting. So I had my own small business for a little bit. And I also helped do safety and risk for a construction company. And then that kind of led me to the path of being connected to Insurica. So I have a very, very important mentor at Insurica. His name is John Schlarb. And when the opportunity became available to come back to Texas, we had a discussion and everything just kind of worked out. And so here I am. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell, the 30,000-foot flyover. But essentially, I work with the clients that we have in the North Texas area. Sometimes I'll go outside of that, but for the most part, I kind of stay in the North Texas area. Insurica has a very unique process to where they are super, or should I say, hyper focused on making sure that our insurance process is very tailored to the risk that the client face. And so we have an extensive team. So I have team members that span from California all the way to Florida, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I put loss control and you, just it's a double entendre going back to the hip hop thing. Tendeka said this was chill, so here I go. Going back to that, we have the U in the Insurica logo, but when I thought about this, I thought about it through two lenses. One is as professionals when we think about loss control and how it impacts businesses, but also for those of you who may be mentors to somebody, those of you who may be students, I kind of wanted to also touch on the aspect of why I love this industry, but more specific, the role I play in it. And maybe that may be something that will be a good fit for someone or another student who's coming up through the ranks of loss control and or risk and insurance. Sorry, I'm just claiming it for you, loss control. But I just kind of wanted you guys to think about it through that lens. All right. So for me, when I talk about loss control, it is risk management. And these three pillars often come to mind from a financial stability standpoint. And really, with financial, it's kind of two sides to the coin because from my standpoint, I have the opportunity to sit in between the client and the carrier. Carriers do have loss control. I'm on the agent side, so I sit in between the client and the carrier. And when you think about financial stability, I think about it in terms of the carriers concerned about it. And then also our clients are hyper sensitive to it and they're concerned about it. And so being good at, what I do as far as loss control and leveraging the loss control value to those clients is always top of mind. So we're always thinking about managing risk. Another aspect of it is premium setting. When I'm out talking to clients, they everything at the end of the day for them is about, hey, what am I paying? Where's this money going? That's what they want to talk about. And so I have to shape the message to them in terms of, okay, here's how it's going to affect you on that side. Insurers are wanting to have a good assessment of the level of risk that they're taking on that's associated with that business. So they're not trying to lose. And on the client side, they don't want to overpay. And then finally, this is my favorite part, underwriting decisions, because I always say when I think about the underwriter, I think about, hey, how do I paint a picture of this client that they can really see what's going on in their organization? And we're going to dig into that too. But it's super important because I want to make sure my client is being represented accurately. If they're doing things that sets them above the rest of people who are in their industry, I want to talk about that. If they have had some challenges in the past and we've made strides to correct those, I want to speak about that. That underwriter needs to know those things. And so when I talk about loss control as risk management, those are the three main things that I think about. All right, so loss control disciplines. I kind of gave you guys my background, and there's a picture on the right. And this is where my mind goes. Let's put all these pieces together to give our clients the best value. And thinking about that, it also makes me touch on having a good team. We have people in our organization who have background in property and fire. We have people on our team who have background in medical. Mine is general occupational safety. We have DOT experts. So one thing that I really, really appreciate about loss control and the different disciplines that apply to it, there's not just one door. There's not just one magic button. And if you are knowing somebody who's wanting to get into the industry, or if you are a student, this is my chance to take a plug here. There's more than one way to get to loss control. You can have a lot of different skills that really impact the success of this job. Just going through the list, quality control and assurance. I know several contacts of mine who know way more about that discipline than I ever will, and I lean on them. There's people who have a lot of background in emergency preparedness and response. When we think about the things that happen in the coastal states like Florida, Louisiana, they see a lot of natural disasters. So loss control comes into play when we go in and work with these companies and uh, we come up with ideas and we come up with strategies about how they can better prepare themselves, knowing that this could happen to them, and even after an incident. Then we have financial risk management, information security. I think you'd have to be under a rock when we talk about information security and not see all that happens with cyber threats. We've seen casinos being attacked. Businesses are at risk from this every corner that they turn. So I think that when I look out at the loss control landscape and I see all these different disciplines and the opportunity that's available, it really makes me proud to know that, hey, there's different avenues that people can take advantage of. So going back to that lens that I want you guys to think about, if you know somebody, if you're mentoring somebody, or if you're a student, think about your interests and strengths. For me personally, I've have specialized knowledge in OSHA regulatory compliance. Um, with this industry, if you have some type of specialized knowledge, it kind of gives you a foot or a leg up into going in and helping the clients. Doesn't mean you always have to have that, because there's many avenues to where you can learn. But having specialized knowledge will help a lot. In particular, I can think about a lot of instances where I had a call yesterday where someone was concerned about OSHA reporting on the 300 logs and was able to help them navigate through that. Me also having a passion for safety and risk management, and realizing, hey, this means a lot to organizations to have someone who cares about their employees going home safe, how they look in the marketplace, how they're going to be judged if they're trying to go after projects and not receive fines or get caught in litigation. So think about, do you have certain interests or strengths that can lead to this role? Because I think that's super important. One of my main ones that I really like is adaptability. I can say with loss control, no 2 days are the same. I start off on Monday and I may be dealing with a client about fleet. And by the time Friday rolls around, I'm talking to somebody about their property risk assessments and things that they need to be putting in place. So there's a lot of opportunity for diverse challenges, but not in a bad way, challenges that keep you motivated, that also help apply really important value to the client, things that they may not have a lot of background in dealing with. So here's some loss control responsibilities. I kind of want to just really talk about what the day-to-day looks like. For me, going into each client, it always starts with a risk assessment. Okay, what does their operations look like? Maybe where are their properties located? Is there any additional information that they have that goes on inside their organization that I can use to say, hey, let's think about this. You may have some gaps here that we need to address. So it always starts with a risk assessment. And then we talk about identifying the controls to keep them from having a loss. So I can explain it like this. Let's say that you are a industry that produces a widget. So you're a manufacturing industry and you have a lot of machinery and equipment. So from a loss control aspect, we may go in and we may talk about loss from people being injured from being caught in moving parts and gears and things of that nature. But we also may have to think about, hey, if a piece of this equipment breaks down, how are you going to repair it? Because that's a loss too. That can turn into a loss of them putting out product. That can turn into a loss of revenue, and it just goes on and on and on from there. Other times we're talking to clients about coverage condition assistance. Maybe a carrier comes in and they say, hey, we want to write this account, but we're concerned about this. If it's a building and they store wood products, maybe they don't have the right fire suppression system in that building. Okay, how do we work around that? Of course, the obvious would be getting fire suppression system. So in the event of something happening, we don't have a total loss. Maybe it could be saying, hey, do we have to have all this product on hand at one time? Can we scale back some and reduce the likelihood of severity should something happen? Can we store flammable materials in different places? That's a really key part of the job that comes up often. Then implementation of those measures. This is where it gets fun, because a lot of times you'll go into an organization and something will need to be fixed, and you very quickly understand or come to the realization that what works in one place may not work over here. There's not a one size fits all. And this is where having that adaptability that I previously mentioned really comes into play. And where your skills as a loss control expert, from saying, hey, this is what the regulation says. How do we meet this according to what this client has going on? How do we become compliant based on what they have in their operation? And that's a really interesting part because one, you have to educate the client on why it's necessary. And then two, you have to do this sort of meeting in the middle, if I would say. Like, how do we all get on the same page to do this in a way to where they don't feel off put, that we're trying to turn their business upside down, but we also need to satisfy maybe a carrier recommendation or maybe a regulatory recommendation. And so implementing those measures is always fun. There are some days it can be challenging, but for the most part, we come to a good consensus and we get the job done. Then ongoing monitoring. If you've been around risk at any point in time, you know that it's a continuous cycle. So you put something in place, you risk assess, you identify it, control it, put it in place, and then you make sure that it continues because things evolve and things change. And so we're constantly checking in with our clients like, hey, what do they have going on? How has their business changed from year 5 to year 10 to year 15? Because things are going to be implemented and they may look different. We may have a client who had a fleet of 5 in year 1, and then in year 5 they have a fleet of 15. That's a whole different ball game. There's a lot of other measures that need to be put in place. So ongoing monitoring is a very, very important part of the cycle for loss control. Anybody have any questions about what I've said so far? I'm gonna throw that out there because I feel like if I don't, nobody will say anything.
Yeah,
And
no, thank
Tandeka, if
you. I think,
somebody put something in the
Um,
chat, just let me know. I'd love to like answer on the fly.
yes, yeah, I see one question. Go for it.
So skills and qualifications, a lot of times we look
Oh,
at different roles
I
and we
think,
think, okay, did you say
sorry,
something?
yeah, I think there is a question.
Okay.
Um, Margari, am I saying it right?
yeah.
Go ahead, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I would just like to ask because you gave us the steps in order. Do you always follow that order, or are there like specific occasions where you have to twist and get there, and instead of starting with the risk assessment, you start with another step? Is there any, I don't know, case has happened?
I love that question. And the answer to that is yes. I personally have. I'm gonna give you the why behind that. The reason why I'm not the person that always says I have to go in order is because sometimes we may encounter clients or organizations who may be reluctant to loss control. And think about it like this. From their side of the fence, it may be like, oh, they're gonna come in and tell me what I'm doing wrong. And sometimes that doesn't give people the warm and fuzzy. And so being adaptable, you may go in and say, oh, they have this control in place. Maybe they are doing, oh, I'll give you a real life example. We have a client who does quarterly meetings with all their departments. And so instead of doing a risk assessment, I said, hey, would you mind if I come in and just be a part of your quarterly meetings where they're doing their own continuous improvement? And doing that, we found that a good thing that they could implement was employee engagement because they were having issues getting some of their employees to be on board with some of the initiatives that they put in place. And through that one small addition to something that they were already doing very well, that opened the door for them to say, hey, why don't you come in and see other areas where we can improve? And then I say, oh, I would love to do that. I have this risk assessment process that I go through in order to identify those areas. So adaptability is key. Short answer to your question, which was a great one, is yes. And I think it's important because at the end of the day, our clients aren't robots yet with AI and stuff. And we aren't robots, right? We aren't robots. We're dealing with people. We're in the business of people. And so you have to be adaptable. Thank you for asking it. All right, so some skills and qualifications. If you go on to like LinkedIn or something like that, here's what you'll see: risk assessment and analysis, industry knowledge, technical expertise, being able to analyze data, and the list can go on. People will ask for certifications. Do you have any experience with regulatory compliance? The biggest one that I'm gonna point out is communication skills, and I would say interpersonal skills. So speaking to you all as a group, I would challenge you all to seek out those interested ones who have those people skills. I'm a firm believer that if somebody is driven and somebody can be focused, I can teach you all the technical stuff. Uh, I have a saying, 90% of my job is people skills, because I can open a code of federal regulations and find my way to the answer. However, if I can't show you why it's beneficial to your organization and why you should be doing it, what good is it? Right. So I think into the future and finding those next generation of risk professionals, I think having communication skills, interpersonal skills is going to be critical, because at the end of the day, we are dealing with people. I wanted to highlight briefly like some impact that loss control has played. I went and grabbed some case studies offline. This one I thought was really good because it dealt with a freight company. Auto is really a huge pain point for a lot of organizations and businesses right now on the coverage side. And then after the fact, if you get into some type of incident, the legal ramifications that could arise from it can be paramount. So this one kind of highlighted a company who was doing very good on their employee attrition rate. They were 92%, so they were 70% above the benchmark. And then they kind of noticed that some things started falling off. So what happened was they had loss control come in, and it says the loss control specialist assisted the owner and the safety director in evaluating the cause of the issue. They found out that there had been a little bit of lax in abiding or adhering to the safety standards for hiring and retaining drivers. The loss control team helped get them back on track. I felt that this was important, even though we're not talking about any dollars in particular in this case. With loss control, I often tell our clients, hey, I'm an extension of your team, right? I may not sit in your organization every single day, but I'm a different set of eyes that can come in and say, hey, this is what I see going on. And then look at what you've done in the past and say, you've done this really well. Can we talk about what's changed? And I think there's a lot of value having someone who sits outside of the organization that has the ability to come in and help analyze and look at the organization and say, this looked like there's been a change here, or can we try XYZ based on what you have going on? Because the good thing from a loss control employee perspective is that we see a lot of different industries. So we can bring value of something that we've seen work somewhere else into another industry. Now, does that mean it's always going to work? No, but it does give you another option that could possibly work. And I think that this was a great case of that. I'm kind of using my imagination as I read through this, but having that third party come in and look at what's been going on to help get them back on track is an obvious win for that company. Another one that's real common has to do with the experience modifier, basically worker compensation. And this affects a lot of companies. I see this day in and day out, especially with our construction clients, subcontractors, because they can live and die by that EMR. If they have an EMR that goes above 1, it can become very difficult for those subcontractors to get jobs with contractors, because from the contractor standpoint, they're looking at that EMR and they're saying, hey, this person may be much more of a risk than I want to take on just based on the price they're going to charge me for this project. And
Can you
so
explain what the EMR is?
yes, I can. So the EMR is your experience modifier rating. And essentially every industry has one for every company has one for the industry you work in. So let's use the example of an electrical contractor. So if you are John's electrical company, you are in the same category with David's electrical company. And the bar is set at a 1. 1 means you're on par with everybody else. If you go above 1, that means you're having claims. In essence, you're a higher risk. If you go below a 1, that means you're possibly doing some things that show you're a safer company. Maybe you're using good safety practices. And so what the insurance or what the experience modifier does is it's called either you get a credit or a debit. So remember I said 1 is even, correct? So Patrick, if you're paying, we'll just use a round number. If you're paying $100 in premium and you're a 1, you're going to just pay the 100. If you have a 1.25, you're going to pay 125. If your EMOD is 0.80, you're going to pay that 80. So for every $100 worth of premium, David may be paying 125 because he's less safe and had claims. And John may be paying $80 for every 100 because he's more safe. So they're getting a discount. It's an underwriting tool, essentially.
I appreciate that. That makes
Yeah,
a lot
no
of sense.
problem. Great question. So in essence, you will see a lot of general contractors use that as a way to gauge how safe a company is. So going back, maybe you go in, maybe us and our loss control departments, we go into a company and we look at their experience modifier. We get it from, of course, NCCI, and we notice, okay, they've got a lot of claims. We look into those claims and see what did they have to do with. And if I look and I see that they have a position where, and I'm going to use just a makeshift example, if they have a role where somebody's hammering a widget and 10 people doing that role hit themselves with a hammer and got injured to where it had to become a claim 10 times, at some point, I need to say, hey, what can we do differently about this role here to avoid that from happening? Because the other thing about an experience modifier is it looks at frequency versus severity. So the underwriter would rather you have one $10,000 claim than 10 $1,000 claims. Why is that, Patrick? I'm sorry, you didn't know you was going to go to school today.
Well, that makes sense because it's not consistent. It might just be an accident or something that you can't really expect instead of some consistent, maybe policy issue or something like that.
Yeah, you've actually shown that there's a trend. Something is going wrong, that you have this high frequency of people getting injured over and over and over again. And so they're like, hey, what's going on here? So you're spot on. So from a loss control aspect, we really look at that and work with our clients and strategize on how can we keep these claims from happening. And in a lot of cases, 2 things happen. 1, it controls the mod to where they're not overpaying for their premium. And 2, it makes them more marketable to the contractors that they want to work with out in the marketplace. So I thought those was real good examples of showing the value that loss control brings. And when you look at it, carriers understand that. That's why on the carrier side, they'll have someone come out and loss control an account, even a lot of times before they even write it. From the agency side, we're going to work with our clients with loss control techniques because we want them to be represented as what we call a best-in-class insured, because we know how important that is to them in the marketplace and with the carrier. So here's my pitch to you all. Career opportunities. It's interesting. It said the insurance industry in 2028 is going to have a 50% workforce retirement. And even though when I took the statistic, it was talking a lot about the producers in the insurance industry, I thought it was interesting because us as loss control, we are a part of that, right? Because if they're going to have those job opportunities for those producers and other roles, there's opportunities for us as well. And I scale that principle by saying this: a lot of times I have the opportunity to go out with some of our production staff and be on a sales call and talk preemptively about how loss control is important to them as an organization. We have the opportunity to go in and be on what we call a risk meeting to talk about the changes that we can make in their organization. So there's a lot of opportunity there. It's going to be, it says employment of insurance sales agents projected to grow 8% from 2022 to 2032. That's faster than the average for all occupations. So interesting fact. In essence, we got a lot of emerging risks that are coming up. I campaign all the time. I was talking to a friend of mine and two younger gentlemen. This was probably a couple of days ago about the risk in insurance industry. Cyber threats are just going to get more intense, especially with AI. We know we're going to have severe weather events. We know we're going to have other emerging technologies that are coming on the forefront. Legal and regulatory compliance is going to have its own changes and challenges. And so when I think about this, it's like, man, I'm looking forward to the next generation of ideas, the next generation of people who will help shape this industry and propel us forward. So I can't say enough about why I'm so passionate about what Spencer is doing. And I feel connected to that because those younger ones, and whether you're in school, whether you just got out of college and you're on the start of your career, I think it's going to be a pivotal moment. I think it's going to be some exciting opportunities ahead for a lot of us. Any more questions?
I love it. Thank you so much, DeMarcus. I'm putting a couple links in the chat box here for everyone to click on it and to follow Spencer on LinkedIn, and to register for all of our upcoming webinar series. But this is last opportunity for questions. So are there any questions? I do see. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think too, great job, DeMarcus. I think too, sometimes we don't always do a great job of including loss control into risk management functions on the client side. So I think it's important to, like you shared, how you've journeyed through loss control. Now you're on the broker side. And so there's always a space in any organization where loss control safety should be married with risk management, and you did a great job just showcasing that. So, and how fluid our industry is. You may start off in one area of expertise, and then now you're headed off to another one.
Absolutely.
Completely agree. There is a question in the chat box from Sebastian. Sebastian, did you want to ask it? Do you feel comfortable enough to unmute yourself and ask your question? Oh, no, okay. He says, sorry, I don't have a camera. So he's asking, do you think that aspects of AI could replace subplant of the leaving force? Then he says,
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
So he wrote, do you think that aspects of AI could replace subplant of the leaving workforce? I'm not sure if subplant is the right word. He typed subplant some of the leaving workforce.
Off the top of my head, I always say anything could be possible. What I really see AI doing is helping to facilitate those mundane tasks that are associated, a lot of the administrative tasks, because at the end of the day, and I say this from a safety aspect, I think it's very difficult to take one answer and apply it in so many different scenarios. And I think that's going to be challenging. Am I going to jump out the window and say it can't happen? No, I'm not going to say that. But I think our clients expect us to be able to really hone in and tailor to their organization. And I think there may be some challenges there.
I completely agree. I think with AI, I could see it, like you said, replacing some of those, mundane tasks, things that just take too long for us, mere mortals, us regular human beings to do. So I see AI as a tool, right? It's a tool that we can utilize to enhance our careers and enhance our jobs, but I don't see it as something that is going to completely replace, human beings, because at the end of the day, again, it's just a tool, right? Someone needs to use the tool, someone needs to drive that tool. So I think how people always say, oh, AI is going to take our jobs one day. I don't think AI is going to take our jobs. I think people using AI will take your jobs.
Yeah.
But that's a great
Yeah.
question, Sebastian. So hopefully we read that correctly. Hopefully we answered that correctly.
Yeah, and a
Evita,
lot of
thank you.
companies are using AI right now, but it's for the very purpose that you and I both said, Tendeka. And I wanted to say this earlier. Another thing I'm kind of doubling back that I really appreciate about the loss control role. Uh, had a good friend. He told this to us several times. He would say, "Do something," and this is my encouragement. Do something that affords you to have the joy that you want in life. Me myself, I feel I'm a people person. And so being in loss control affords me that to be around people, to really try to motivate and interact on a positive level. And so that's what I like about it. And there will be some people that you all know or mentor who have technical skills, or who is very acute to like the weather, the things we see going on with the weather, and they'll have all those skills that are needed to attack and face these challenges that we see coming down the pike, or that we're experiencing now for that matter. And I would say encourage them to lean on that and think about how that can be used in a field or a professional manner.
That fantastic. Any last questions out there that we could answer before we wrap up this session? So I do see here, Margaya wrote, "It would be my pleasure. Could I please have your LinkedIn?" So if you guys feel like sharing your LinkedIn opportunities, please take this opportunity to share your LinkedIn URLs. Just copy paste them, drop them in the chat, and then that way you all can connect with each other.
And I love connecting on LinkedIn.
Yes. Fantastic. Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, DeMarcus, for hanging out with us for an hour. This was very, very insightful. This was very engaging. So thank you for taking the time to put the presentation together. I'm seeing comments in the chat. They're saying excellent presentation. There were a lot of people just saying great job, well done, spot on along the way, and I completely agree. I think for a lot of people, especially those who have not heard about loss control or that sector of our industry before, I think this is going to be very eye-opening for them, and especially for young professionals coming into our industry. Hopefully, after watching this session and watching this recording, they will at least start to consider the loss control sector within the industry and just realize all the different career opportunities that are available there. So thank you again. For all the students that are here with us, our next session is going to be Thursday, June 13th, and that's when we're going to kick off our summer series. So from the next session onwards, we're going to host these Spencer webinar series on a weekly basis. So the next session is Thursday, June 13th. It's going to be from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. Our presenting organization is going to be CICA Amplify Women Association, and they've lined up speakers from all sectors of the industry. So we're going to have a carrier representative, we're going to have a broker representative, and a risk manager on that call. And we're going to learn all about captives and career opportunities within that sector of the industry. So thank you again, DeMarcus, for being here with us today. And I wish you all a great afternoon and a great evening for those that have dialed in internationally. We'll catch you next month.
Bye, everybody. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Marcus.